Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Djuma Game Reserve and welcome to Wild Earth this afternoon on a really lovely, hot, sunny autumn, or rather late spring, no, late autumn, early winter afternoon. And down on near Philemon's Dip, we're catching up with some lion that was seen this morning. My name is Mark. Brian is on camera with me this afternoon, and we also have Scott and Liam that are out on the other vehicle. We'll be crossing to them at some point. I've just come back from leave, as you all know, or for those of you who don't. I've been away for a little bit, so it's great to be back. We're great to be back in the seat of an old friend of mine, this vehicle that we call the Jigger, which means turn. Jigger is to turn. And also great to be back in Djuma and with some of the familiar characters that we have and those that we see quite regularly over time. And this is one of the groups of lion that we tend to see from time to time. It's sort of the southern limit of their territory. Most of their territory extends a little bit to the north and to the east. They're known as the Nkuhumas, a pride of lion. And I was anticipating one or two of them getting up because, as you can see, they're lying in the shadows of a not very thick bush willow. And as the sun starts going down and the shadows start getting longer, the cats that are lying on the western side of the shadow are going to be exposed to the sun shortly, and they're going to have to get up and move with the shadow, and they're actually probably going to come out from underneath the bush where they're lying and hopefully lie in some of the open shade as this youngster did now. But it is a hot afternoon. I believe we're at about 30 degrees Celsius this afternoon, or 32 even. It's roughly 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And well, for getting close to the middle of winter, it's certainly a beautiful afternoon. I believe evenings are getting quite chilly here. I've been down at the coast where it's a completely different season. It tends to be a wet winter as opposed to a dry winter up here in the Kruger National Park, and it's already rather chilly down there. I had to spend most of the time down there wearing longs and shoes and covering up with a scarf, but had one really beautiful day that I was able to wear shorts and put my feet in the sea. Brian panning this lovely wintry sky. We tend not to have too much cloud in the winter months. They tend to be very, very pale blue skies. There's a lot of dust in the air. There would be fires too in the rural areas just outside the reserve. That tends to make the horizon a little bit hazy. But that hazy horizon translates into a really beautiful sunset later on in the day. Being a hot afternoon, I envisage these cats going to stay here for the rest of the afternoon. I can't imagine them moving unless something came by. If there was a giraffe or a kudu or zebra, something might be walking by. But then again, being a hot afternoon, not many animals are going to be moving around unless they're making their way down to a waterhole or at a waterhole. Sometimes you'll find buffalo in the mud or warthog wallowing on the edges of the waterholes or small mud wallows. Sometimes hyena too. And so I think what we can do is we'll see if we can get a better look at these cats. I wanted to stop a little bit away just to say hello. I don't want to disturb them with my voice, but we can move in a little bit closer and just see how many there are here, if it is the whole pride. And then I think we'll go for a drive. We're going to have a look. I want to see what the bush looks like. I've been away for almost 2 weeks now, so it has changed somewhat. In fact, the change is a reverse change to what happened the last time I was on leave, because last time I was on leave it was getting very, very dry, and coming back to Djuma it suddenly seemed that everything was turning yellow prematurely, and that was in early April. Whereas now there has been a little bit of rain, so there's a little bit of green that is poking its head out from the little bit of rain that we had. I think it was just before I left, as well as I think just after I left to go on leave there was some rain too, and that's kind of delayed the very, very dry conditions of midwinter. Very typical late May. I'd like to see if we can find find out what the impala are doing, because they should be in the middle of their rutting season right now, and maybe see what else there is in the immediate vicinity. I'd like to go for a loop and then come back and see if the cats have moved or if there's any change in them, and then maybe go for another loop to a different area. And by doing that, we can see if there are any animals that might be within the vicinity of these cats later on this afternoon if they chose to hunt. I believe that quite recently they were feeding on a young hippo. I did manage to see a photograph of that on Facebook. It was quite amazing. That's something I've only ever seen lion feeding on dead hippo. I've never found lion actually catching hippo, although I've certainly spent a lot of time with lion and hippo in many different parts of East and Southern Africa. It's not a usual prey item for them, especially here in the Sabi Sand. I think you might find that there are certain prides in other parts of Africa that might specialize in hippo because they've managed to figure out how to catch them, maybe larger prides. But it's not a common thing for the cats here in the Sabi Sand to take down hippo. I'd like to see how full the bellies are. Can't get much of a view from here because they are hidden by the grasses. One lying with her belly to the sky. I'm not looking very full, but I'm just going to creep a little bit closer. Let's get a better view. Unusual that they are so close together on such a hot day, but that's possibly because the shade isn't that big. Now I can see some sun on one with her belly up, the one on the right. You can see that very pale inside of her thigh. That's going to start getting quite hot there, and she'll probably be the next one to move. Diane and Donna, Inga and Afira, hello to you all, shalom, and some of the other tweets that are coming in. Thanks everybody for the welcome, for the return welcome. It's good to be back. Feels like I've been away quite a while. It was quite a long break, but it was super to be down in the Cape, but we'll talk about that later, and I think not the right time to do that now. So a carpet of cats, and we'll sit around for a few minutes because I think that one cat's going to get up. I think she'll start getting hot pretty soon, and she'll need to come and move into the shade. But with these sleeping cats breathing heavily and showing every sign that they're in dreamland at the moment, I'd like to hand you over to Scott to say hello. Scott and Liam are up in another area of the property. I'd like you to go and see what they have. They're heading to one of the dams as well. I'm going to move on from here, maybe make our way towards Treehouse Dam, see if there's anything there, and I'll see you a little bit later. I'm going to join Scott and have a good time there, other side of Djuma, and we'll find something else. Coming back, no doubt.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a beautiful, beautiful part of Djuma Private Game Reserve. VM's on camera this afternoon, and we're approaching Buffalo's Hook Dam, so it's a great time for you to have joined us. As Mark would have mentioned, it is quite warm today, so I'm hoping that the waterholes are going to be a very popular hangout for a lot of the animals. There are a few waterholes around, which obviously increases the options to the animals in terms of drinking places and places to rest and relax and wallow in the cool water. So what I plan to do for the start of this afternoon's drive is pop into the few waterholes and see if we don't get lucky at any of them. Sometimes you do need to be patient at waterholes. It can be your strongest thing that you need to work on in order to make the most of waterholes, because you could arrive at a waterhole and there may be nothing there, but if you wait 5 or 10 minutes, a whole flow of animals may begin to appear, and it is often the case. So that's my plan, and in the next 30 seconds we should be getting there. Great to hear that the Nkuhuma Pride are still where they were left this morning, and despite the fact that they're fast asleep now, I'm sure Mark plans to return there a little bit later, because when it does cool down, there could be some great action to be had there, so great prospects with the lions. And now that we know that the lions are there, both of us can go and search for other things while we wait for things to heat up. Heat up in terms of the lions' action, cool down in terms of the weather. Okay, well, there's somebody at the waterhole. You can see just in front of us. And I'm just going to try and roll forward and stop in a position where VM will be able to film her for a while. Well, there's a whole host of different animals now that I'm slowly beginning to see, but we're not in the best position at the moment. This is a female kudu. Very large ears and those vertical white stripes. She got a fright. There was some impala running off to her left, and she wasn't too sure what exactly they were, so she actually ran towards them to establish what the potential threat was. There's another animal coming through now, VM. If you just stand by to the left there we go. Well, she's walking across too. I'm not sure if it was a bushbuck or an inyala. There was another antelope also heading off. Well, here comes another kudu. So we've got lucky. It appears though that we may have missed this specific drink session. Now a family of inyala are coming past. So already 3 different species of antelope in under a minute. Now that's what I thought was a bushbuck. It's a young male impala, inyala rather, at the back of the herd. And you'll notice he has a chocolate brown coat. The females have got a rusty orangey coloured coat. So quite easy to distinguish male between female, just in terms of their coats. But you'll notice that he also has horns, which the females lack. And they're much bigger than the, smaller than the kudu. Even though you just got a glimpse there, it was a female kudu and a male inyala, yet the female kudu dwarfed him. So, relatives, they're all part of the spiral horned antelope family. But the kudu are the largest spiral horned antelope we get in this area, then the inyala, and then the bushbuck. I think I know the perfect place for us to stop the vehicle. There's a little shady section. I just missed the turn off for it there. And we can sit and wait and see what arrives here. We don't have to wait too long. But let's just give it a try. Quite often in national parks throughout Africa, you get hides or lookout points that are built structures, and they allow you to get out your vehicle and go and sit in a place in silence, waiting for the action to unfold in front of you. There's often a very thin slit that you can see through, so you are hidden, hence the name a hide. And we're just going to have a mobile hide this afternoon. You can see a hippo here. He's been here for the last few days. Now I'm guessing it's the same hippo. There's a few fairly distinctive scars on its back, but he won't be the only hippo walking around with scars. They fight very aggressively with one another for territories, but at the moment there's nobody to fight with, and he's got this whole pond to himself. I think it's a male, but difficult to tell when they're in the water, especially if there's not a female that you can compare them to. Now, as hard as this may be to believe, this is a live safari, so if you're joining for the first time, a very warm welcome. And just to let you know, it's a live safari. It's happening this very second, just many miles away from wherever you are. And not only is it live, you can also ask us questions at any stage, and to do that you would hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or send an email through to questions@WildEarthTV. And to all the regular viewers, I haven't forgotten about you. Thanks for all your support and for joining in. And I'm looking forward to this afternoon's adventure. I must be honest, both Liam and myself are wondering where the leopards are hiding. In the last week we've had only one leopard sighting. It was a sighting to remember though, one of a beautiful, beautiful dominant male leopard called Mvula. And that, I think, was on Wednesday. We haven't had many tracks to follow up on. They just don't appear to be anywhere near us. That, of course, is not necessarily the case. They could well be in our area, but simply have made a kill in the middle of a block where no roads drive nearby, and they could be stuck there for 3 days feeding on an impala quite easily, and then we'll lose track of them. At this time of the year, when the male impala are rutting, they do become one of the prime prey species for leopard and lion, and any of the predators that feed on impala-sized prey. So I'm guessing that's where they are, and hopefully if they have made a kill, they finished that one and now need to move around and lay some fresh tracks down for us on either the roads or any of the animal trails that crisscross through the Djuma property, because we need some clues. Well, let me actually correct myself. It helps to have clues in order to try and track them down, but just as easily we could be sitting here with no alarm calls and no tracks, no idea of a predator being anywhere nearby, until it pops into view, and that would certainly make my afternoon. There is one predator already here though, and it's a predator that we watched yesterday afternoon, having an incredibly successful hunting escapade. We saw it catch about 3 or 4 fish, this grey heron, in the space of a matter of minutes, and some were fairly decently sized. So let's see what happens here. I haven't been keeping a very close eye on it. I've been scanning all of the bushes and shady spots around the dam, but it does seem focused. You can tell by its body language and posture that it's certainly not having a snooze, and the way that it very slowly, the way it very, very carefully places its feet into the sand, and it'll use its feet to slowly kind of unravel the lower crust of the dam wall, and that way try and disturb little fish. And I guess when it feels the fish with its toes, it just stabs in the general direction with that very sharp beak and tries to latch on to the fish. It was also hunting in this very, very same area yesterday afternoon. It's obviously a tried and tested hunting ground. The water seems quite shallow. You can notice by the length of its legs, it's hardly disappearing into the water. As incredibly well adapted as all of the predators out here are, their focus must be admired, because it can often take hours and hours of intense concentration for them to be able to catch their prey. Now, you don't want to blink an eyelid, because as soon as it does sense a fish getting nearby, it spears that sharp beak of his into the water at a lightning rate. Oh, this is looking good. Wow! He got one!
No.
Didn't he?
Don't know.
I don't know if he's swallowing litres and litres of water. His head was under the water for quite some time. Okay, well, it sounds like that was a miss. Anyway, you get an idea of how quickly he can fire that beak into the water. When I say he, it could equally be a she, and I... Oh! That was a cheeky little shot he just took there. Fired that one from the hip, it appeared. Okay. There's another interesting little bird walking down behind him, and that's Franklin, a Natal Franklin. And not only does this dam provide birds like the heron, a fish hunter, a permanent home and place to find food, it provides many other birds that don't rely on water permanently, but it does provide a lot of them with a place to drink. So sitting at waterholes can be a great place to do birding. And again, the hides that I've spoken about that are very often in national parks and in private game reserves are often small wooden boxes that you sit in comfortably with narrow slits to see out, and they are often positioned in places like this around a waterhole where you can get to do... Oh, the heron did a 90-degree... Oh, no. Well, obviously the sights must be out today, because yesterday it was almost 3 for 3, I think. Now he's sharpening his bill on a piece of elephant dung. I don't think that's going to help. A sign of desperation, one could say. Maybe it's not the same heron from yesterday. That's also possible. There's a number of herons that frequent this dam, and I was a bit silly to assume that it was the same one as yesterday. Just like humans, all the animals will have certain traits that they are good at and others that they are not so good at. Be it a heron or a leopard or a lion, some are good at hunting and some are not so good. Well, I was hoping for a little bit more life and action here. It doesn't seem like it's going to be the case, but then again, I did say that we need to be patient, and here I am already getting itchy feet. But let's give it a few more minutes. I'm sure if Mark bumps into anything exciting, he'll be sure to let us know, so we're not missing anything with him. Oh, well, I can hear some oxpeckers coming in. They've landed in a dead tree nearby. Now, I wonder if they were just coming to this waterhole for a drink, or if they were coming in the hope to find some herbivores here that they could try and feed off. They feed on the parasites that suck the blood from herbivores. And you would have heard them flying in, and now you can see them. Red-billed oxpeckers. You can see the one on the top is holding its beak open. It's sweating. A great indicator of how hot it exactly is this afternoon. And the birds cannot sweat like we can, so they have to thermoregulate by opening their mouth. You will notice that some of them have got red bills and yellow eyes, and others don't. Those are the youngsters that have yet to get their adult plumage. They would have been born a few months ago. Now, well, seeing as though these oxpeckers have disappeared out of shot, and also seeing as the fact that they're probably going to fly away fairly soon because there's no herbivores here, let's head over to Mark and see what he's up to, and if he's had any luck, we will see you all a little bit later.
I believe you've been watching some oxpeckers at a distance, and we're fortunate enough to have them on a buffalo right in front of us. We've come down to Treehouse Dam, and interestingly, very similar activity around here to I think what you've been seeing at Wisselshoek Dam, in terms of we had a herd of kudu that were here. They moved off, they didn't stay too long, came and drank and left. And there's a bachelor herd of impala just off to the eastern side of the dam, below the dam wall. I can hear one of the rams rutting, making his rutting noises, but there's clearly a state of calm because the young rams that are in the bachelor herd are making their way over to the water in ones and twos, and there's a little bit of interaction amongst them, sorting out their own hierarchy as young as they are, and a little bit of, I wouldn't say sparring, just a little head-butting here and there. So we'll see if they might come too. Behind them in the distance, all I can see really, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, maybe you've got a better view, is a zebra. I'm guessing a stallion. He's standing behind a bush at the moment, but there's a zebra present as well. So we've had kudu, impala, zebra, there's the buffalo here, there's a hippo fast asleep in the water. All we can see is his back, looks like a rock. And every now and then his nostrils appear as he takes a breath. It's an automatic response for hippos. While they're sleeping, their heads rest on the bottom. Their feet will be tucked underneath them, and they'll be lying on their sternum. And his head will come up automatically for a breath and then sink back down again. Lovely late afternoon light. We're sitting on the western side of the dam. Gives us an opportunity to look across the water, have that lovely reflection as the animals are drinking with the side lighting on them. And sometimes when it's very hot and there isn't much moving around, it's nice to just sit and wait and see what might appear, because you never know what's hiding behind a bush. And first appearances can be wrong. You could drive past the dam and at first sight might not appear to be anything, and then the more you sit, the more you look, the more you see. Norman in Tennessee wants to know, different species of animals ever crossbreed? Normally not. Antelope. Oh, antelope species. No. Yes. They can. But under normal circumstances where antelope who can crossbreed, under normal circumstances, they wouldn't be in the same area, and the only time they have crossbred is when humans are putting them in the same area, and so you get a kind of a hybrid. If I think of the bontebok and the blesbuck, that are both very similar, that have crossbred through landowners putting the two species in the same area. But nature has got wonderful mechanisms to prevent crossbreeding amongst all forms of life, not only just antelope. And it starts with appearance. I think to some degree, most certainly the main ingredient of it all are the pheromones that are given off when a female is in estrus, and the effect that has on the male of the same species in terms of how he perceives the females, and all males have a very special sensory organ towards the back of the throat, as known as the Jacobson's organ. It is an organ that picks up or senses pheromones that are given off by either individual animals or scent in their urine, or just the general scent of the species. And so you'll find that different species do not react to the pheromones of another species. Now, of course, there are always mechanisms that can be, or rather there are always times when those mechanisms that nature's put in place can be overcome. As I said, there have been times when antelope have been kept in captivity that there have been crossbred or crossbreeding. Not really captivity, but just putting antelope of a similar family in the same area where they ordinarily wouldn't cross paths. So I suppose the failsafe for the pheromones is the fact that maybe the appearance of the animal and the mating habits of the two different animals don't match, and so that's another sort of failsafe. But that also can be bypassed, I suppose. And then there's another failsafe. There's always something. Nature's got mechanisms in place that will cut off the possibility of crossbreeding right throughout the spectrum of nature. And it goes as far as the genitals not matching, and then if that still doesn't keep the animals apart, then perhaps the sperm not meeting with the egg. And I suppose if that still doesn't work, then the final result will be a sterile animal, as we have with the donkey and the horse that are crossed to make a mule that doesn't breed, or a donkey and a zebra. The blesbuck and the bontebok, on the other hand, are such close relatives that there is actually there are a lot of hybrids of the two species that are still able to breed, as far as I'm aware. And it's very, very hard to actually get purebred bontebok these days. You can see how hot the oxpeckers are. They're panting, their beaks are open, much like a dog would be panting. Hello to Suzanne. Suzanne's in the Netherlands asking whether the dams ever dry up. Some of them are likely to. Twin dams is a very small dam. It's possible for twin dams to dry up. This is not a very deep and a very big dam, this one here, a treehouse dam. It's also quite possible that this could dry up. And we've known from the past that Gari Dam dried up a few years ago, some time ago. So Suzanne, yes, it is possible that they can dry up, and it is always dependent on the early rains in summer, or good rains in summer for that matter. You see, the first rains that start falling in the springtime get soaked up and disappear so quickly because the ground and the bush is so dry and everything needs it. It takes a lot for the ground to fill up with water so that we get a lot of runoff that eventually might fill up the dams, and that takes a lot of rain. It takes very heavy rainfall after you've had a good season of rain already. So it normally only really happens around mid to late summer that we really get heavy rains that fill up dams. Ordinarily the rains leading into summer are just the introductory rains. They're there to just feed everything. Well, the impala and the zebra is gone. We can always go down that road to see where they are and make our way back towards the lion in a little while, because I don't want to miss them waking up. I don't want to miss the activity when they do start waking up and they start interacting with one another. James in Kansas City is asking what would happen to the fish, in particular the catfish. James in Kansas City. Hi there, James. Welcome to our drive this afternoon. Catfish, as you're quite correct, James, the catfish are able to burrow into the mud and they dig out a chamber for themselves. It does remain fairly moist. There's a very hard crust that dries on top of the remaining sediment of the dam, and it does stay fairly moist. But there are times when the next rains can be so far away that the catfish might be doomed. I think it's the other fish, like the tilapia, perhaps, that are the most vulnerable. But what happens is, as the dams start drying up, the birds take advantage of it. The herons, egrets, storks, kingfishers, a lot of birds that feed on aquatic life are well aware of the concentration of life that happens as the water starts shrinking and the fish have nowhere to go. So I think for a lot of the fish, including some of the catfish, some of the smaller catfish, they eventually get eaten by a lot of animals or a lot of birds, and even sometimes a leopard or hyena. But there will be some that will be able to burrow into the mud and survive. And of course, it'll all depend on when the next rains are. I'm not too sure of the length of period that they're able to stay fairly safe, encased in their mud cocoons, but that's something to look into. Several months at least. Strange, I'm not seeing any terrapins moving about. So in comparison to Buffelshoek Dam, this is barely a quarter of the size. It's all of maybe 25 yards across at its widest point. As opposed to maybe at least 100 at Buffelshoek Dam. So anyway, we're going to carry on driving. I'm going to take a ride down this road where I saw the zebra and the impala heading. We're going to go and have a look to see if there's anything down there. And in the meantime, I'll hand you back to Scott, and I'll let you know if there's anything exciting.
Down into the water.
We'll go to the other side. Not that deep. Probably a huge rock down there.
Welcome back, everyone. And I believe Mark's been explaining the differences of size between the two dams that we are sitting at. Here at Buffalo's Hook Dam we are enjoying a beautiful view of the southwestern side of the dam, and as you can see there's a peninsula that heads up to the right, and I'm just going to roll forward in order to be able to try and show you this peninsula and where it ends. That should do. So it's a beautifully shaped dam, and we've enjoyed many sightings of both lion and leopard around this dam, elephants, hippo, a large herd of buffalo. There was even a resident crocodile for a while, or possibly two different crocodiles. We'll never know the end of that story, but potentially two different crocodiles that arrived here just one day, and incredible to think that they travel large distances over the land between the waterholes in order to get to these little aquatic oases. I'm not sure why the crocodile didn't spend much time here. There's so many fish in this dam, and as well as terrapin, and we actually saw it feeding on terrapin. Oh, hello hippo. Now there's also one hippo. I think it's the same one that's been here for the last few days. There was speculation as to, is it a female that lost her calf to the Nkuhuma pride of lion? That was about 4 or 5 days ago that they managed to kill a medium-sized hippo. I think it's a bull though. Judging by the size of its neck, you can see those massive muscles protruding behind its ears, and to me that looks like a male, but I stand to be corrected. And beyond the hippo you can see the grey heron, and it's still hunting. I've been keeping an eye on it. It doesn't seem to have had too much luck. Absolutely awesome. Look at all the bubbles as he kicks up the earth underneath him. It does release air pockets, and those are all the bubbles we can see there. A muddy jacuzzi. Oh, he wasn't swimming there, he was walking, as I said, and disturbing the earth below him. They don't float, even though they are semi-buoyant like us. They don't float. So wherever you see hippo in the water, you know it's about 1.5 meters depth at the most, because that's about their maximum height, or their average height. Occasionally it could be shallower than you think, because they could obviously be kneeling down. It's interesting to note how the different animals have adapted to their different lifestyles and environments, and you'll notice that he's got tiny little ears. Hearing isn't hugely important for hippo.
Scott,
yes?
we've got a visitor.
Ah, we've got a visitor. It's our first visitor of the afternoon in terms of mammals. We missed a few inyala, kudu, as well as some impala as we arrived. They had finished drinking, but our patience paid off, and now we've got a combo deal of a Birchill starling and a big male impala, both enjoying that beautiful little section of the Buffalo's Hook waterhole. Oh, now look. You see, it really is phenomenal how the animals come in waves, and from when we arrived until now it's probably been about 15 minutes, and a whole new herd of antelope is coming in. And we're spoilt with this herd of kudu. There's a young male, a fully grown female, a fairly large male. He's not an absolute monster, the one closest to us with his head down. Got a beautiful herd of kudu, and the sunlight could not be better. Sorry, man. Well, just got a question through from Tim in Arkansas. Good afternoon, Tim, and welcome on board with us. Thanks very much for sending your question through. Tim would like to know how big an average male impala would weigh, and it varies on the area, but the average weight of a male is around 50 kilograms and females about 40, so that's about just over 100 pounds. Kudu, the other antelope you can see here, are far larger, and males can weigh up to 200 kilograms and females at around 120 to 140. Again, a lot will vary on the same species of animals depending on where they occur, and the same goes for the antelope as well as lion and leopard and hyena. Thanks for sending that question through, Tim, and something that I'll add on top of that is, even though 50 kilograms is not a very heavy animal, the power of these wild animals is so much greater than ours that if you had to try and hold on to those horns of a male impala just for 30 seconds, it would be close to a miracle if you pulled it off. And most men are considerably heavier than that, yet their power is something to be reckoned with. And I often think to myself how lucky we are that so few of these animals realize their ability to harm us, because if all of them knew exactly what they could do to us, I think they would have punished us for some of our bad behavior over the last centuries. It's been great to notice how, because there are a few animals together here, they immediately feel safer than if they were to be alone. And it's a great example of safety in numbers. While some have got their heads down drinking, others have got their heads up, keeping an eye out. And it is a very dangerous area. They know that predators can lie here in ambush. I don't think there's one lying here yet this afternoon, unless it's not interested in hunting the kudu. And it looks like they've escaped this drinking session, and they're heading off with some oxpeckers on their back. Good afternoon, John, in Connecticut, and welcome to Buffalo's Hook Dam. John would like to know how deep the dam is, and I think the deepest point would be just over 1.5 meters. I have seen buffalo and hippo walking through various sections of this dam, and yeah, I'd say the average depth would be 1 to 1.5 meters, with the deepest section maybe being around 2 meters. I haven't been for a swim in here yet, John, and I probably won't unless the following summer forces me into it, but it would be a dangerous move with hippo and either crocodile potentially being in here. It's not going to be a very relaxing swim, but from watching animals walk through here, I'm thinking a lot about a large herd of buffalo that we saw here. I got a good idea of the depth of this dam, which was great. Matt in Texas, good afternoon, and thanks so much for sharing this information with us. Matt has realized that the grey heron we're looking at here looks quite similar and is related to the great blue heron of America. And he's wondering if this grey heron ever has a pale morph or a very white coloration. And I'm guessing that the great blue heron does occasionally have this. And no, it doesn't actually, not as far as I'm aware. And none of the herons that I know of in Africa have got different morphs. Now, that is not necessarily the case, that's as far as I'm aware. But I am racking the filing cabinets, and I'm even getting out my bird book quickly to check if it says anything about herons with a pale or a dark morph. Breeding plumage will change with some of them. Well, Pamela's interested to know if it's common for, and just to let you know, I did have a look in my book, I couldn't see anything on the herons that we do get in this area having different colour morphs, Matt, but I will certainly look into that, and if I do find out anything more, I'll let you know. Now, Pamela's interested to know whether the same bird, the grey heron here, will also sit on the back of this hippo, and yes, it's quite common for them to do that. Not necessarily just the one at Djuma Waterhole. It's a fairly common trait, and one of my favourite things to see. It's actually a toss-up between having the heron on the hippo's back or having the small terrapins. But I have in fact seen it happen here on a number of occasions. Again, who knows, maybe it's the same heron from Djuma Dam, but I'm guessing it's a common habit amongst herons. And on Twitter, thanks for this question, and it's a good one, and one that a lot of you may not have thought about. Where do you think these birds sleep at night? And it's a good question. They sleep up in dead trees most often. If there are dead trees in and around the immediate proximity of the dam, that is where they'll sleep. The closest dead tree where they do sleep though, and I'll actually be able to show it to you.
Mike, come join with a Nyari.
It's not very clear from here, but I will be able to show you the tree that they sleep in. It's behind a marula tree, but it will at least give you an idea of the distance that they are happy to stay away from the dam. And just at about 1 o'clock there's a marula tree, and behind the marula tree you can see a dead knobthorn tree. A bird just actually took out of it, so you can vaguely make out the knobthorn tree sticking out on the top right there, and that's where the herons stay, and sometimes there's 4 or 5 of them up in that tree. Oh, a few more visitors. A young male impala. He would have been born in the end of 2013 in all likelihood, just over a year now. And a kudu in the background. Laura in Pennsylvania, good afternoon. Laura would like to know if there's any weaver nests. And weavers are birds that are rightfully named weavers because they've got the incredible ability to weave nests out of grass. And up to our right over here, we do have two different types of weavers. The one does certainly not do a very neat job in building its nest, and those are the massive clumps of sticks that you can see. But in the foreground and in and around the clumps of sticks, you'll see a few very neat grassy balls, and those grassy balls are the weaver's nest. You can see on the one dangling on the center of your screen at the top, the entrance hole dangles underneath, and that's where the adults will enter in and out of the nest. And these would have been made by village weavers. They often nest above water and always around water. And the other nest that you can see in the background is made by a sociable weaver called the red-billed buffalo weaver. Sadly, both of them are no longer using these nests. Their nesting season is over. But it was a hive of activity over November, December and January. So two different weaver birds nesting here. There are also some other nests, and they are very different to that of the weaver's nests, and they are built into the muddy bank that you can see across from us. And we're not sure exactly who used those nests. Despite spending a lot of time here, we never saw any birds actively going in and out of there. They may have been used in the past, but birds like kingfishers will use those as nests, as well as bee eaters. So, incredible to see how different the nesting sites are. Okay, well, folks, I really am enjoying all these questions, and for those of you who are not yet birders, it's worth opening your mind to. It's certainly part of the safari experience, and you can't just think about the big stuff. As easy and as nice as it is to watch lions hunting buffalo, it doesn't happen all the time. And in those moments in between, bird watching is a great way to keep entertained out here and keep testing yourself and learning new things. Now, Bob in Iowa would like to know where the red-billed oxpecker's nest and what their nest looks like. And it's interesting, it's different to the two types of nests we've just looked at, in that they nest in cavities in dead trees. I've mainly seen them nesting in dead knobthorn trees, but any holes in any trees will be a good home for a red-billed oxpecker. I was just listening. I thought I heard some alarm calls in the distance, but for those of you that know me well, I tend to get a little bit too excited and often miscalculate alarm calls. I think that was just a bird calling off in the distance. Well, I think Buffelshoek Dam has been good to us, and we'll maybe spend a few more minutes here before heading off and seeing what else is around. It's fair to say that in the hour that we've spent here roughly now, we haven't heard any alarm calls, we haven't got any intelligence from the bush. So let's move on and see if we can't find some action elsewhere. Okay, well, Kathy, it sounds like you also have a beautiful sunny afternoon, or sunny day in Florida rather, and good to hear you're enjoying the good weather over there. Now, Sandy's interested to know, will hippo chase animals or try and bite onto them at any stage, or just simply chase them away, be it the heron or the impala or the kudu? The answer to that is yes, they will, but typically only in drought situations or when they are feeling threatened by other animals. Interestingly enough, I've once seen a hippo chase a buffalo out of a dam, and the poor buffalo was being chased by a lion, so the buffalo retreated into the water as a safety refuge, and the hippo came charging out. I was thinking to be on the buffalo's side, but he turned out chasing the buffalo straight back into the lion. So a lot will depend on the individual hippo and its personality. They can be extremely short-tempered and actually kill more people in Africa than any of the other mammals. Now, there are more reasons to it than that need to be explained, rather, and that is that hippo can live in and follow waterways that run outside of national parks or safe havens for animals, and therefore you get human-animal conflict. And it may be a simple act of people just going down to the waterhole to wash their clothes, or down to the river to wash their clothes, and stumbling upon a hippo that's in a bad mood. And they do have bad moods and short tempers. So, yes, they do chase animals, even humans. And here comes a beautiful male Nyala. But in a situation like this, they'll have very little reason to chase off anything. There's a lot of water in the dam. He doesn't feel threatened, and I don't think that's going to happen today. Okay, Kathy in Tennessee, good afternoon. It's a pity this Inyala has just disappeared out of shot, because Kathy was interested to know, what is the easiest way to tell the difference between a kudu and an Inyala? Now, when they're standing next to one another, it's quite simple, because the kudu will be much larger than the Inyala. But if they're on their own, things that you should look for, Kathy, would be the corkscrew-shaped horns of the kudu. So just imagine a giant corkscrew with very distinctive spiraling horns that creates a very clear twist. The Inyala's horns twist, but they spiral on one axis, if that makes any sense. So they just twist on themselves. They don't create an actual corkscrew effect. So that would be one of the key indicators to look for. Obviously, you'd need a big male kudu, or at least a half-sized male kudu, to see that. Another thing for me, which would be easy for you to tell the difference, would be coloration. Now, kudu are very pale-colored. Oh, here we go. And they're both uniformly almost grey. This animal, on the other hand, it has the vertical white stripes like a kudu, but it doesn't have a grey coat. It's got a rusty orange coloured coat. So the rusty orange colour is a female Inyala. The dark chocolate brown is the male Inyala. Now, the only way I could think of helping you to remember that is occasionally you find slabs of chocolate with both dark chocolate and orange in. So remember, dark chocolate and orange is the male and the female Inyala. They go together. And the kudu is grey. So there's not much of a colour difference between the male and female kudu, whereas in Nyala it's very distinctive. Now these are Nyala, just to clarify, the orangey colour. I'm hoping a male will follow these ladies out, and there's a strong chance that will happen. I hope that helps you, Kathy, and I'll try and quiz you the next time we see any of the individuals alone. Okay, awesome. The male is returning, so now you're going to be able to see the difference. Now you can see that dark chocolate brown. The male kudu would lack the prominent white socks and orange socks, or essentially the socks on its legs. and it would be a grey colour. Well folks, I think it's about time for VM and I should start moving on. I just want to make a minute or two just to see where these Inyala decide to drink. They could come down and spoil us to a beautiful sighting of them drinking, or they could continue. So if you just hang on a few more seconds, we'll be able to establish what they're going to do. And Cappy, look at how his horns, they don't create a corkscrew effect. They simply twist on themselves. The kudu's horns has got a very distinctive spiraling corkscrew. Absolutely beautiful antelope, both the kudu and the Inyala. But this Inyala bull also has those distinctive ivory tips sticking up at the top of the horn, signs of a bull in his prime. And it sounds like there may be another vehicle coming to join us, unless it's my mind playing tricks on me again. But they are going to come down and drink, so let's enjoy the sighting of them before cutting across to Mark. It's interesting to see that the male took the first sip. It's not always the case, but it's as if he kind of reassured them that it is safe. But he's doing it for a very simple reason, that he's trying to seduce these ladies, hoping to mate with them. And the male impala in attendance. So it has been really interesting that there've never been one species that come alone. They often share the lookout roles and are aware of, oh look at the male, a good sign that he is charged and really trying to impress these ladies, buffing up his horns, displaying his strength, tossing that mud into the air. And he's wagging his tail proudly. Let's see if he does it again. Now there's no other males around, so it's interesting to note that he did that, because it can often be, like I said, to display his size and strength. But maybe it's just the ladies he would like to impress, not so much dominance, unless he was trying to teach this male impala a thing or two. Well, it seems like the Inyala have finished drinking, and let's head over to Mark. I'm sure he's loving being back exploring. He's spent a few weeks away now, and it's always the best feeling coming back to the bush, noticing the changes that have happened while you've been gone. And on a beautiful afternoon like this, I'm sure Mark is going to be full of fun and enjoy everything he has lined up for you this afternoon. We'll catch up a little bit later.
This is the jigger with its wheels. Brian's on camera with the thumb. My name is Mark. Welcome back to this side of Djuma. We've been travelling around from waterhole to waterhole while you've been up at Bivelshoek Dam, and I think we're pretty much seeing the same thing at most of the waterholes this afternoon. The buffalo are relaxed during the cud. There are impala around. I did notice some Inyala as we were arriving here. We may be seeing them as we leave this dam in a few minutes. The heron that was actually deeper in the water is now on the edge. But interestingly, the main prey of the heron, or rather one of the main prey items of the heron, is a species of frog that lives in the water, and It's probably the only truly aquatic frog that we have in terms of its lifestyle. It lives underwater. It only comes up for air, as opposed to a lot of the other frogs that live on the edges and in the reeds. And this frog's known as the clawed frog. Here in South Africa, it's commonly known as a platana. Platana. I know plat means flat, but I don't know what else it means. But these clawed frogs have to come up for air. They very, very seldom will be in the shallows on the edges of the water. And that's why often we might see the heron sitting on the hippo's back or sitting on a log or a rock in the water. Sometimes wading in as deep as its legs will take it. Lone impala ram. Excuse me. Got one of those frogs in my throat. Ah, Gail. Interesting question from Gail. Wanting to know what it is that is making the ripples on the water. We often see what looks like raindrops, but it's actually all sorts of little creatures underwater. Mostly the big ripples are those fairy frogs I was talking about, the clawed frogs. As they're coming up for air, there will be little back swimmers, a number of bugs, true bugs actually, aquatic bugs. In fact, probably the most numerous of aquatic insects belong to the bug family. There are also a couple of water or aquatic beetles that we might find in the water that will be coming up for air. A lot of these bugs and beetles trap air around their abdomen, and that's where their breathing apparatus is, their lungs, as it were. Insects don't breathe through their mouth, they breathe through holes in their abdomen called spiracles, I think. And there's a pair on the side of each segment of the abdomen of each insect. And sometimes they have very fine hairs that allow them to trap air around their abdomen so that it almost acts like an aqualung, and it allows them to stay underwater until the oxygen level is depleted, at which time they need to come to the surface and that old air is expelled, and that the hair on the body traps a new bubble of air around them. We know there's a spider, maybe not here, but there is a spider that has perfected an underwater web where she'll actually release bubbles from her abdomen and make an underwater dome, an underwater bell, as it were, diving bell, where she will live. We have fishing spiders here, and they are able to go underwater. They go underwater in defense and to catch fish and to catch some of these aquatic creatures, but they mostly live on the surface. They'll dive underwater to go and catch something, but they will come back to the surface. They also will trap air around their abdomen. So it's a combination of fish, insects, frogs, all breaking the surface tension of the water with those little ripples. Interesting that we've got some kudu and nyala together off to the top end of the dam. Excuse me. Can you see the starling next to me?
I can too.
I'm trying to make out what it's eating. Could be ants. Starling's one of the few birds that will eat ants. Or they could be termites. I don't think harvested termites would be busy right now. Because harvested termites would be the only termites that could be busy above the ground. But the starling is really very busy. It's found an entrance and there's a lot there for it to eat. Each time it pecks into the grass, it It's actually eating a small insect. This is the Birchall's glossy starling. You'll notice it's a fairly large starling. It is the largest of the starlings. Being so close, we can really get a good look at it. But you also notice the main feature of this particular starling is the fact that it has a very dark eye. The other feature, of course, is the fact that they have longer tails than the other glossy starlings. But it's a very distinctive starling. No other starling has the dark eye with the long tail like that. Now, I had a question about oxpeckers. Interesting question, why yellow-billed oxpeckers are less common than the cousins, the red-billed oxpeckers, especially since they both pretty much have the same diet and the same habits. I think one of the main reasons is because of cattle farming in the mid-20th century, early to mid-20th century, using a lot of herbicides, or rather pesticides or dips, tick dips and poisons on their cattle to keep the parasite loads down, and that had an effect on. I think the yellow-billed were probably more numerous in those days. I'm not too sure. I know there's possibly other reasons too. It's also a matter of distribution. One other factor is that when you go further north from here, going into East Africa, there are more yellow-billed oxpeckers, and I suppose in some ways it's more a matter of the range of their distribution, where we're on the sort of southern limit of the yellow-billed oxpeckers range, perhaps. I'm not sure. Maybe you can look up for me whether yellow-billed oxpeckers occur down in, let's say, a place like the Eastern Cape, where we have the Addo Elephant Park, or other game parks. I don't have my books with me, because I literally got out of my Land Rover under a shower and into the jigger, so I haven't quite settled in yet. I will be by tomorrow morning, but I'll bring my books along and I'll have a look myself at the distribution range of the yellow-billed versus the red-billed oxpecker. See those Kudunyana have left, and I think as I'm getting another question coming in, at Buffelshoek Dam, Scott would have been showing you a weaver's nest of the red-billed buffalo weavers, one of the only social weaver nests that we get here. Tina in Houston is asking, do we get those big, massive social weaver nests that you get, like you get in Houston, in Tina's in Houston, in Namibia, in the quiver trees in Namibia and other trees. Tina, we don't get that social weaver here in this part of the world. It is mostly in the dry western regions of parts of Botswana and Namibia, quite far away from us. And the answer to your question is we don't get those nests here, that species of weaver. I'm just going to stop here because there's a family of Nyala that are making their way down to the water. I think there's a youngster that's about to make itself visible as it Come, little one. Just behind this bush willow. And I'd like them to come out. Looks like they might be making their way down towards the dam. Shadows are getting longer, and I'm eager to get back to that pride of lion to see what they're up to. That was the Birdsall starling making a noise, by the way. I guess they're not going to move, are you? They've frozen, these Nyala. There we go, mother and child. Come out. For any animal, approaching the water is always a very testing time, because very often you'll find predators lying around the water or around close to the water. We've seen lion and leopard lounging around over here. So when animals are making their way to the water, they've got to cover some open ground that renders them quite vulnerable, and so it can be quite some time before they are convinced or satisfied rather that no danger lies ahead. Obviously with the starling making its noise now made them maybe a little bit more alert. There seem to be 4 of them, 2 females and 2 youngsters that are coming out of the shadows. And with the females being quite cautious like this, of course it translates to the youngsters, and you can see how the youngsters then also learn that you can't just go barging into a place or out into the open. You've got to be very, very careful where you put your feet. There was a parrot that just made a squeak off to our left somewhere.
Nkuhuma still same lock this morning. 1 more on lock, space or 2.
Copy that, thanks. Andrew, confirm, are they still fast asleep?
Yeah, family voice. 1 more fast asleep.
A lot of francolins also coming down. I guess they're also maybe making their way to the water. And we can hear the sound of a lot of these crested francolins, their evening sounds as they start winding down after a day. Sometimes the last sounds that we hear. If anything, I'd say that they're following the Nyala, using the Nyala as a safety. I wonder what spooked them. Probably these francolins. Yeah, you see, the francolins spooked the youngsters, and then the youngsters spooked the adults. I think we need to just go back a little bit. I see there's a kudu drinking on the other side as well now. It's a lovely afternoon for animals to come down to drink. It's been very hot. How's it been recently, Brian? Have you had days like this?
Yeah, so. Not as hot as today. But for a while.
I'm sure that whoever's zooming at the moment will be picking up these nyala and the kudu on the other side. But I think let's just have a look. If we can. Mostly because not everybody is on the waterhole camera, but also because the light is just so beautiful right now. And I hear there is a vehicle with the lion at the moment, so if there is any change I'll certainly hear about it soon enough. And I want to eventually get back to those cats and see them as the sun starts going down and the temperatures start dropping. I think after a hot day it's possible that they might stay flat for longer, but we never know these things. That's what it's all about, the unknown, and going to find out.
This angle's no good.
Okay, sorry. Remember, you can send in questions to questions at WildEarthTV, and you can also tweet us hashtag Safari Live if you're on Twitter, and those questions then get sent through to us on the vehicle. We are live, we're able to answer questions as close to you asking them as we can. A wonderful interactive possibilities that we have. Lovely Saturday afternoon here, and I hope you're all having a great week. Andy in Texas. Sandy wants to know, she says she's never heard anyone mention heartworm amongst the mammals here in Africa. Do the animals suffer from heartworm as they do in the United States? Sandy, I'm afraid I can't answer that question. I'll have to go to the books and educate myself on heartworm and its prevalence in the wild mammals of Africa. Can't answer the question. We don't really get into the diseases and things too much, although obviously there are natural born diseases, natural born pathogens that affect the animals. Sometimes they're not affected, they're just carrying it, like foot and mouth, perhaps. Foot and mouth. But out of the veterinary environment, we don't really delve into that sort of stuff very much. Mostly because, I don't know, I guess this is pretty much a hands-off part of the world. We're in a very big national park. Animals here are the way they have been forever. These animals are not kept. If anything, it's we the humans that have to live behind fences. far as the animals are concerned, human nature takes its course. And of course, there are state veterinary services, and there is the animal health, the government organisation called the Department of Animal Health that deals with these things. But for those of us in this type of industry, we are so far removed from being involved in okay, we better go to Scott quickly. He's got something while I'm rambling on about diseases. So answer no, let's go to Scott. I'll see you back here shortly.